Early in 1962, William Baring-Gould wrote a remarkable biography, Sherlock Holmes of Baker Street. We hear now his report on the critical reception of his book by the world's press.
The book is now selling just ahead of the Passion Flower Hotel. And I do think it's very nice that a book about an Englishman, 109 years old, should be outselling a book about a whole English school full of teenage tarts.
170 was in your book.
I know that many of you have seen the English edition of Sherlock Holmes of Baker Street, which I personally like a lot better than the U.S. edition because it has pictures in it. You remember what Alice said, what is the use of a book without pictures? And I'm particularly happy that so many of the pictures have been illustrated by, or been the result of people here tonight. You know, the back of the jacket is the legend of the Hound of the Baskervilles, which was inscribed, I believe would be the proper word, by our own Owen Frisbee. One of the illustrations for the book is none other than the last will and testament of Sherlock Holmes, which, as we know, was unearthed by Nathan Bengus. Here. As far as the text itself goes, there is an acknowledgement that says that Baker Street regulars everywhere have contributed to this book, and that they have. Rolf Boswell, Deke Simpson, Bob Levitt, certainly Rex Stout, and perhaps most of all, the late, great Edgar Smith. So since I think that practically so many of you in this room have a hand in this book, I thought you'd like to know that while it is not yet the financial success that I'd like to see it, certainly I think we can say it is a critical success.
Is this a paid advertisement?
Yes, and I'd like to have you bask with me in some of the glow of critical acclaim which has been cast on this book from virtually every place. Let's begin. It was properly reviewed in the good gray New York Times, and how we miss it, by none other than old irregular Tony Boucher, who said, and I quote him, quote, "wretched proofreading," unquote. Another old irregular, Rolf Boswell, was equally kind. He said, "Doubtless there will be disagreements aplenty." And Bill Raby was terribly quick to second that, I felt. He said in the Detroit News of Sunday, May 13th, "Sherlockian scholars make quarrel with Baring-Gould's explanation of Dr. Watson's wandering wound. They will certainly dispute his report that Sherlock Holmes simply died of old age on a Sussex park bench." Now, going north to S. Tupper Bigelow land, we find that the Toronto Globe and Mail of May 2nd said, "A fantastic exercise in imaginative nonsense."
Take back that award. We don't want that.
The Vancouver Globe says, "Mr. Baring-Gould tends to carry things just a bit too far. Imagination boggles." But it is really when we cross the seas that we find criticism rising to its finest heights. And I think I'll just begin with the Irish News of October 27th, fanciful. The Birmingham Post of September 18th, irritating. The Sunday Telegraph of September 16th, unscrupulous. The Manchester Guardian of September 27th, tongue-in-the-cheek audacity. John O. London's Weekly, Mr. Baring-Gould does not play fair. Books and Bookman, Mr. Richard Whittington Egan. I like him. He says, "Absurd mythology, bogus biography. One is tempted to slap the volume down with that irascibility that Watson displays in A Study in Scarlet as he flings aside the magazine containing an unsigned article by Holmes with the remarks, 'What ineffable twaddle.'" The Manchester Evening News of September 27th. The joke is well illustrated. And a paper from someplace, I can't read my own typing. It's from some little town. It's The Independent. The profuse footnotes contained in this book do not make for smooth reading. And the Illustrated London News, one I'm particularly proud of, says Mr. Baring-Gould is an American. The Daily Telegraph of September 21st plunges you into widening fields of speculation with interminable murmurations of whimsy and finally flamboyant invention. And this is a lovely little publication called The Old Lady of Threadneedle Street, which contains more than its share of guesswork and wishful thinking. There are times, too, when I suspect Mr. Baring-Gould of tampering with the text. At least one London bookseller has already refused to display Mr. Baring-Gould's extravagant biography of Sherlock Holmes on the same shelf as the Sherlock Holmes Companion. Joan Fleming in the London Evening News. In this book, Sherlock Holmes becomes a sort of Edwardian James Bond. Holmes shows, too, occasional flashes of Bertie Wooster. The distinguished Mr. Maurice Richardson in the Observer for Sunday of September 16th. Only God himself could have carried off so heavily endowed a temperament as Sherlock Holmes displays in this mixture of cod and ingenuity. Evo and Punch. Seldom, perhaps never, have I seen a human countenance so agonized, so distorted by horror, grief, and bewilderment as that of an old reader of the Strand magazine when I set before him this book. The London Times, no doubt Mr. Baring-Gould knows Holmes' methods. It is a pity that he does not apply them. And again, the Times, persistent as the hound of the Baskervilles, Baring-Gould dogs his prey. And the one I particularly want to share with you from the New Statesman of September 28th, this is the culmination of Holmes' scholarship, and let us hope its demise. Well, I don't want you to think that the continent has neglected bathing us all in this glow of admiration. I have, courtesy of Cornelis Helling, something you'd think coming from Minneapolis, Minnesota, I ought to be able to read Swedish. I cannot, but I think the sense of this is all here. It says, Baring-Gould och betildad rat. Och slat Sherlock Holmes. My only complaint so far is that those goddamn Russians haven't even the courtesy to steal the book.